Hello everybody, here we are at Fruitful Trees and I'm in front of my mango tree, lemon meringue mango tree, and it's doing great. A lot of fruits on here this year. Looking forward to tasting these lemon meringue mangoes. And I got a great video for you today. So today I'm going to be talking about some tips on growing fruit trees. I recently interviewed a fellow named Mark Young, who used to be president of the South Palm Beach, Florida Raft Fruit Council, and learning all about different fruit trees and everything else. His farm tour was amazing. I'll put a link below the video to that, and he had a lot to say about a lot of trees. And I interview a lot of people, but he was prepared. Right before I went there, right when I got there, he gave me this paper and he said, "Here you go. Here's some more information about trees." And I was like, okay. And I read it, and it's like it took me a long time to learn these tips that he had on this paper. So I just wanted to bring this up here and mention it to you because this is going to save a lot of you, especially those of you that are new to growing, a lot of time in terms of growing and making mistakes and learning and so on. So thank you, Mark Young, for this list. And it's just a reminder or an introduction if you're new to growing trees. So there's several things to understand. One of them is lesson 1. He says plant grafting fruit trees or plant grafted fruit trees. So I've spoken about this before a lot in the show. Is most fruit trees do not grow true from seed. And what that means is if I have a mango and I get the mango seed, or an avocado and I get the avocado seed and plant it, you're not going to get the same fruit that from that seed that the fruit is that you ate. It's not going to be 100% identical. Most times than not, it's not even going to be near close. Sometimes it will, but the thing is you don't know. And it could take anywhere from 5 to 10 years before that seed is going to fruit. So his tip is plant grafted trees. So a grafted tree is they created a rootstock by using any seed, but they took a part of the branch of a tree that's already in existence, and they grafted it onto that rootstock. So you know exactly what you're going to get. And it's highly recommended. It's very easy to graft. I have other videos talking and showing how to do that. And it's also, you could buy a grafted tree, but if you are going to plant a fruit tree, it's probably one of the #1 mistakes I see people make that don't have knowledge and know about this is they just go and they plant a seed in the ground. It's not a wise move. There's a chance you might get something good, maybe even better, but the chances are much less, and you got to wait a much longer time. But if you get them grafted, you know what you're getting, and it's going to be much sooner. So #1 tip is to plant grafted fruit trees. #2 is research productivity and disease resistance before planting. So there are different trees and different varieties, and they grow great in certain areas, and some grow better in other areas than other. So you want to research those particular trees that you're going to get, and research how productive they are and the resistance to disease. Even within a variety like mangoes, some varieties do wonderful. They have great disease tolerance. They don't get diseases really, and they're wonderful. Other mango trees are very bad. They're very well known to get diseases very quickly. If you have a big space and you can plant as many things as possible, this might not be as important to you, but it'd still be wise to do. But if you have a small space and you only have a few trees or room for a few trees, you definitely want to get the trees that are going to give you more fruit, be more productive, and also not suffer from disease. So you can pick those, and you want to research. And with the internet, there's so much information out there now about different fruits and fruit trees where you can pick the best varieties possible, not just what you like and taste-wise, but also what's going to give you the most bang for your buck, so to say, and what's also going to have the least amount of disease. Not only if you get a diseased tree can it mess up that tree, but if you have other trees nearby, it might mess them up also. So you want to do the research, and pick that out wisely. Another one is understanding plant nutrition. Now, this is a more complicated one because just like in people, most people don't understand nutrition for people, and most people are sick. Well, trees will thrive. Trees will thrive when you give them the right nutrition, and that means the nutrients. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot that goes into growing a proper fruit tree. And so he said, he writes here, you should understand basic plant nutrition so that you know which advice to follow and ignore. There are many well-intentioned people that are out there that will say stuff over the internet and so on, but really you want to get good, knowledgeable people. And that's why one of the reasons I do this channel is because people could tell you what exactly to do and what's worked for them. The best way to tell is people that are already done it. They have good information. They have a thriving trees and stuff. So you ask them what they do and how they do it. So, but understanding plant nutrition can be important, and it's not that difficult once you understand how to do that. But the wrong nutrients can definitely slow down the growth and productivity of the tree. So lesson 4 is the micro irrigation makes a big difference. So when I was at Mark's farm out where he lives, or his orchard in his yard, he was telling me some of his trees had something called micro irrigation and some trees didn't have any micro irrigation. And micro irrigation is not a sprinkler system that's going on all over the grass and everywhere. It's its own water for each particular tree. So it's just getting that particular tree in the root system and so on. And getting the irrigation to that tree alone and controlling the amount of how much water it gets and knowing what type of water, if it's filtered or not, and all this can make a big difference. And it does make a big difference in the term of the growth of the tree and how fast they grow, and also the productivity of the tree. Some people say, well, I don't want it to grow as fast, but the productivity is also slowed down if you don't give it the right irrigation. And some trees require more water than others, some require less. So just understanding that and doing that, it does make a tremendous difference. Now, another one is, especially here in South Florida, is managing the tree height. This is another tip, or lesson as he calls it, managing the tree height. So basically, these trees can grow over 30 feet tall. Pretty much all tropical fruit trees will grow pretty tall. However, it's very difficult to get fruit that's high up there. And also, we get hurricanes, or we get windy days, and big trees don't mix. So again, it depends where you're at, but if you have a smaller yard or anywhere, managing the tree height, pruning it back to some degree is wise every year. And there are some dwarfer trees that grow slower, but he just says that for South Florida at least, hurricanes are a factor. And it says you can reduce the risk of damage to trees by keeping your trees in the height range of 10 to 15 feet. And it's best done by preventative measure by annual pruning after harvesting fruit. And this said larger trees can be brought to that height range over several years. Aggressive pruning a tree has risk of damaging or killing a tree, so a preventative is the preferred method. A rule of thumb for larger trees that you can cut up to 1/3 of the height of the tree in a year. You should also be training your trees by tipping them shortly after planting and encouraging lateral branching, which can provide more optimal for trimming later in the tree's life. So I have a bunch of different videos on pruning trees. Tremendously important. These trees behind me, these trees are like 8 years old, and I prune them every year after I pick the last fruit. And I've seen some of these trees. I have a cherry tree. I've seen humongous cherry trees, but I prune mine every year. And that tree is under 10 feet tall, and it's productive every year. Now, if I would have let that have gone crazy and then just tried to prune it all to the size it is now, it would have been more than 1/3. So his suggestion is you don't want to prune more than 1/3 of the tree. That definitely helps. So that's another tip, is the tree height. Now another one is planting your plantings. This is another lesson, number 6, planting your plantings. So you want to know what to plant and where. And he says specifically, some trees take standing water better than others. So you want to know where to plant trees that way. Some of them are more cold sensitive. Some of them are more wind tolerant. You know, you want to look at the spacing of the trees before you plant. Or you just plan it out. Having a good plan is always going to help you save a lot of trouble in the future. I here planted and moved way too many trees too many times because I didn't do the proper research prior. Or I did a lot of research. I just knew things came to me. But the more you plan of where you're putting a tree with what and so on, the better off you're going to be. So that's a great tip and suggestion. Another one is to learn about the different pests before planting. So there are different types of pests in different areas, and you want to learn about this because it says here, he says, I removed certain trees because I learned that they encourage additional pests. So, for example, some of the guavas get fruit flies, and they could become a breeding ground for additional fruit flies that may attack other fruits, like papaya. So just things like this, just researching in your research to find out what pests the trees deal with and how they deal with it and so on. So this is great suggestions and advice. That's 7 lessons or tips that Mark Young gave me about the fruit trees that I've talked about in various different videos here. But I wanted to do one video all this here. So if you're new to growing your trees, maybe those tips will help you a lot. And if you've missed any of those, you could just go back and make sure you cover the checklist. And yeah, so that's that. I could add a lot of videos I do are for bigger yards or smaller yards, and the differences, because that's another thing I would put as a tip is you want to, when you do your planning, you want to also consider where you're at. So if you're living, you know, there's small yards and there's big yards. Bigger yards you can plant a lot farther. Smaller yards you might have to plant closer, but you want to get the smaller variety of trees. You don't want to get very big as trees if you have to do that. So planning on the spacing and all that, you got to figure out. But another thing too is, this is what I found, is when you have a small yard in a residential neighborhood, you got to be careful because people are walking back and forth. So you want to plant stuff in the front or stuff that's visible that they likely don't know what it is or it doesn't look ripe. So mangoes, nice, beautiful, colorful mangoes would not be the best thing to plant in front of your house. However, a sapodilla or a white sapote might be much better choice because the white sapote is pretty much green on the outside. And sapodilla, a lot of people don't know what they are. Jaba de Caba might be a better choice than mangoes. Avocados and mangoes are probably the worst things to plant right in front of your house. Everyone knows what they are and everyone wants them. So you got to plan with that. Another thing I have found is I like to keep my yard as clean as possible. And not everyone might not agree with me, but I have found that vines and bananas and even coconuts to a degree make a mess. So they require more work and they make a mess. So, you know, those are things I wish I would have known earlier, but I found out. So vines, bananas, and coconuts are all amazing. I love passion fruit, I love bananas, and I love coconuts, but they wouldn't be my first choice if I was starting fresh again in my yard, because they require more work, more maintenance. They get everywhere, and you got to keep on them. So that's just some more tips and suggestions and a whole bunch more. That's why I created this channel, is to just educate and to learn for myself and educate other people as well. And that's why I have all these people come on who know a lot more than I know about this. They've been doing it a lot longer. So I pray that these tips helped you out and that you continue to have fruitful trees. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Put your comments and questions below. If there's any other tips you could recommend or suggest, put them below as well, because people do read the comments. Remember to like and subscribe this video, subscribe to this channel if you like these videos, if they're being helpful. And if there's something you want me to talk about or somebody you want me to interview that I have not yet, please mention it below in the videos and I'll do my best to make that happen. Until then, everybody, have a great day and keep growing.